Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Relatable Hour with me, Dr. Green. Thank you so very much for joining. I am very excited about today's show because we have a really special guest with us today, who I know is going to really highlight some important things that she's doing and things that she wants to do in the community. But I think shows like this are important because with where we are right now politically, we really have to be involved with individuals who are seeking your votes and also having something to do with your better livelihood as it relates to where you're staying and things of that nature. And so this show is really predicated around individuals who are living in Mississippi, but I definitely think that it's something that everybody can gratify hearing from. So with that being said, I would like to introduce today's guest, Miss Kamesha Mumford. How are you doing, Miss Mumford?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Green.
Thank you so much for joining. I know that you are extremely busy. I see you, like I said before we started, I see you everywhere. I see your pictures everywhere, your signs everywhere. I know that you have been working the grounds really hard with your campaign. So I appreciate you taking some time out to just kind of speak with us today. So
Yes, my
thank you so
pleasure.
much. I did not introduce you, I don't think, in the proper way. So I would love for you just to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm Kamesha Mumford. I hail from the big town of Canton, Mississippi, which is, small town Mississippi.
City of Lights. Can't
City of
City of
Lights,
Lights.
exit 119. Went to Canton High School, graduated from there in 2000. Went on to Mississippi State in 2000, graduated in 2003. I was in the University Honors Program there, and then went to law school at Mississippi College, and graduated from there in 2007, which is where I met my husband, Gerald Mumford. We got married the day after my law school graduation. So I graduated on Friday, got married on Saturday.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Yeah. And then, over the course of that marriage, we've been married now for 18 years. We have two children. Our son is Garrison, he's 12. And then we have our daughter, she's Gia, she's 8 years old. I am a real estate attorney. I've been practicing in the area of real estate law for most of my legal career, well, the entirety of it, last 18 years. I'm also licensed to practice law in Louisiana. And I practiced in Louisiana probably for about 7 years, up until my daughter was born. And then I thought I needed to get off the road some there. I currently serve as municipal court judge for my hometown of Canton. I've been on the bench in Canton for 12 years. Um, three different mayors have been in office, and this will be my fourth term that I'm currently in now that was just renewed unanimously by the Board of Aldermen there. In my legal practice, I do a lot of heirs property work, estate planning work for families. I have a large focus on helping families maintain, preserve, leverage their family land. We hear a lot of stories about Black land loss. And so most of my practice has been devoted to that. And then I own a title company, Mumford Title. We close on commercial, residential real estate all over the state of Mississippi. Um, and I serve on several boards. I'm all in all the things. And so I'm on the board of directors for Dress for Success. I serve as their general counsel. I also do some work in our local schools, sponsoring teacher breakfasts. And lunch and orientation, back to school drives. I'm a vacation Bible school teacher at my church, New Hope Baptist Church. That is probably one of the highlights of my summer. Um, I used to think that I was going to teach when I retired because I just love students and young people so much. And so I'm getting my feel for that in VBS at New Hope every summer. And really just finding ways to serve. Now, my latest endeavor is a candidate for Senate District 26, which is the Senate seat that was vacated by John Horn. The election is November 4th, and here I am offering myself for service, which is something that I said I'd never do, but I'm so excited about it and so committed to not only campaigning with integrity, but also serving in that same manner.
Oh, absolutely. And when I hear, backgrounds such as yours, the things that you're doing, the things that you've been doing for years, I mean, I just kind of feel like, you know, how is it that you are able to do that and then just continue to keep doing so much more? Because I mean, just what you said alone, I
Yeah.
mean, I can't even imagine how you have time to do really how you're talking to me right now. Like, because this just seems like you're really, involved in so many things. But I think something that really sticks out in you just kind of sharing the things that you are doing, you're committed to doing them, and there's a sincere passion behind the roles that you've taken. I mean, you can easily say no to be on certain boards, to do certain things,
Yeah.
but you have, adequately said that you would want to do those things. So I'm just curious, where do you think that comes from, that drive to want to participate in all of the different things that you're involved in?
Just thinking about community, I was always raised with such a sense of community. And my grandmother would always say, to whom much is given, much is required. And so I pride myself on using all the gifts and the talents that I've been blessed with on being a blessing. And that
Mhm.
comes with service. I've been telling this story about press. It's kind of my one of my campaign slogans, but it really is a true story. If I move out of the way, you will see that sticky note on the monitor behind me. I wrote press, PRESS, on a sticky note when I started my business. I press toward the mark of the high calling, which is in Christ Jesus. And the mark is service. And so if you aren't serving others, what are you really doing? Like,
Mhm.
what is your purpose?
Right,
You know?
right.
I've always kind of been purpose driven. Like, what effect does my work have on others? Which is kind of how I ended up being a real estate attorney. And so that's how I'm able to get all the things done because I'm always thinking about my why and what
Mm,
purpose is and the things that I've been blessed with and what purpose those blessings came to me for. And
mhm.
so I tell the story of the parable of the talents every VBS. I don't care what the subject is. Because I think, for young people, they really need to think about their gifts and why they have the gifts
Mhm.
and how they are to use the gift.
Mhm.
And I think we see too often in our community some young people who are really talented never reach their full potential.
Mhm.
And it's all about understanding why you were blessed with that talent. And everyone has some talent. There is something that you're good at. And when you start using it and tapping into it, you just get more and more gifts and talents, and you just keep spreading those talents out, which is why I am doing all the work that I'm doing. Because
Mhm.
as I am working, then the Lord is adding.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And with you sharing just that tidbit about the talents, I mean, you have literally spread yourself out so much, and the more you've done it, the more you've developed in yourself, and the more that you have really accentuated that statement about your why. You found out so much more about yourself and your purpose. And so it's really kept you busy just sowing your seeds and sowing your talents out there. So I think that's really commendable. I'm really serious when I say that. That's quite amazing. Um, Curious, you talked about being from Canton.
Mhm.
Um, Talk to us a little bit about, just when you were younger and the vision that you had for yourself. Even, from when you were young to high school, how did that look for you growing up, wanting to, be certain things, your desires? Talk to us a little bit about how you were at that point in your life.
You
Very,
know, Yeah, when I was 5 years old, I was already telling people that I was going to be an attorney.
oh,
Now,
wow.
I thought that that was my idea. As I got older, I realized though that it really was my parents' idea, but they could see the gift already. And they just encouraged me to follow that path. And I think I recently told them that I said, all this time I've been thinking that this was my idea, but it really was your idea, my mom and dad's. And they just encouraged me. They put me in things and programs that helped hone those skills. I was in 4-H as a kid. I showed sheep at the state fair every year at the Dixie National. But another part of 4-H was the oratorical contest, and we would go down to Colin Community
Hmm.
College every summer, and we would have to make these presentations. And that just helped me kind of develop into a better speaker. And then I can't leave out the church. I was speaking at every Sunday school lesson, Easter program, Children's Day, just all the things. There was such a focus on being able to present myself well, but also like knowing that why and having that strong foundation in our family. And so I was really blessed to have parents who could recognize certain things and skills in me, and then just encourage me in that path. And I never wavered from it. Like from 5 years old, even when I got to Mississippi State, I was so focused on getting to law school. I went there in August of 2000, December in 2003, I had my degree. I was ready for law school. Because I had the one track mind, like this is the end goal for me is to get to law school and graduate from law school and to become an attorney. And so I didn't, the noise never got to me and I probably should have enjoyed college a little bit more. Uh, but I was so focused on the goal. I'm just
Yeah.
a results person. Like,
Mhm. You had a mission. You had a mission to fulfill.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you didn't really have time for anything else. But I mean, that just really shows like your, again, your drive and your desire to do what you really want to focus on.
Mhm.
That's been really important to you. So, I mean, you get to college and you finish like what is that, 3 years, 3.5 years or so?
Yeah. Yeah, I was, and I think some of those experiences coming from a small town, I go from small town Canton to Mississippi State University. I'm in the university honors program. I was probably two, African Americans in that program in my field of study at the time. And so I had to have a certain determination to make it. And I was even then like looking at the rankings. And I remember, first semester rank, because they say, I think it was 81. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember getting it out and I was 5 of 81. And I was like, five, like that's pretty
You were not pleased with that. You
not
were not
messing
pleased with
around.
that.
But I just had such a drive to do my best, be my best, and really to make my parents proud. And looking at kids today, I was blessed, and I didn't even realize this until I got to college about how many young people didn't have those type of influences in their lives. And so that's another thing that I've just sought out to do, not just for my own two children, but just for any child that I come in contact with, is to be that support, to be that encouragement, even to yield that influence, on them to
Hmm.
do you can be whatever you want to be. Just have that commitment and the drive and the dedication to being your best.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like you have had to really challenge yourself as it relates to your motivation and your dedication and your focus-driven energy. It seems like when you want something, you go after it pretty well. You came equipped with the tools, the familiar background to kind of help support you to get to your goals. So by the time you got to college and you finished in 2003, I mean, of course, there's some other stuff that comes between that because I mean, when you go into law school, you have to, apply for certain tests and all that type of stuff. Like, was that a challenge for you kind of get into that space? Because I mean, getting into law school is a really, really arduous task, or it can be for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Oh yeah, and it was, and I wasn't. I mean, I'll be frank. The LSAT preparation course was not in my family's budget, and so I had to self study. The first time I took it twice. The first time I took it, I did okay. At the time, I think they take your highest score now. I think this has been 20 years ago, it got averaged. And so if you didn't do your best the first time, you were still stuck with having to deal with the ramifications of that score. I took it the second time, did a lot better, and then I was admitted into three law schools, Mississippi College here in Jackson, Ole Miss. I can't remember the third. It was like a smaller school. I applied to several. Was really thinking I was going to go to Ole Miss for law school, and just decided I needed to be close to my family during this time. Family is really, really important. That's like my base. That's where I get all of
Hmm.
my strength, and I knew it was going to be a challenge. And so I thought, you know what, I just let me stay close. Because even at state, I was homesick. I mean, just being in Starkville, I was coming home a lot,
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm
Um,
familiar.
yeah, and so I just thinking about all those things. Let me stay close to my base so I can, draw some strength from them when I'm weak. And so I decided to go to MC, and things worked out really well there for me. I think being close to home allowed me to have those tough days, and I would go and sit on my grandma's porch in Canton, shed a few tears that I probably
Mm-hmm.
didn't let her see, and then just go back and fight some
Mm-hmm.
more.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was so great for me to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. So, when you did get into MC and you were here, you were with your family, um, was it exactly like you thought it would be when you first entered into it? Or does it kind of give that image of, we see it on TV. I'm
Yeah,
going off what I see on TV. I'm not a lawyer. So I
yeah,
see, on TV, they make it, seem like it's really intense. You have to study, got all the books.
yeah.
Was it, similar to that, or was it a different experience altogether?
It was similar, but being at MC, it's a Christian school, so there was a different approach to it. Now we still have the Socratic method, meaning, you come in and we don't actually go over the cases. You just get questioned. Going over the cases in class is somebody getting put on the spot and being questioned about those cases. That was pretty similar. I will tell you now, I love a rom-com or, those type movies. And so I'd watch Legally Blonde, which is like one of my sure you probably hadn't seen that one. But a lot of that you see in the classroom is very similar to what you experience in law school. You really have to prepare before class and then be ready to go and discuss those cases in class. And so it required, a lot of work on the front end and knowing how to study. Which you struggle more if you don't have a good base on how to study. Now, I had a little bit of an advantage because I met Gerald, who was a third year, my first year. Um,
Hmm.
and he had done some really wonderful outlines. And I tell this story a lot because I was shocked at how precise and well organized all of his notes were. I was like, wait, you were a football player? And and he shared those
Yeah.
with me, which lightened my load so much. I worked during my first year of law school, um, which most people don't. Now it was a weekend job. I mean, I had my whole family, so like everybody's rooting for me, right? I got my parents and grandparents paying my rent, and so I was like, I need to do something. And so at the time, my grandfather had an interest in a gas station in Canton, and so on Saturday mornings I would clock into work at 5 a.m. At his gas station, and it was like your country store. So one minute I'm cutting deli meat, hog head sauce and liver cheese.
Wow.
Next minute I'm scooping worms for somebody that's going fishing. It was
That's a multitasking
oh
job
my
right
gosh,
there.
and so I would do that I think I would have to report at 5 a.m., get off at 2, but I could use that early morning time to study because there weren't that many people coming into the store until, probably around 9 or 10 o'clock that morning. So I would just study during that time. And then I do the same thing on Sunday mornings, but I would just work until church started. Small towns are wonderful because the store was right there and our church was like 3 minutes away. And so
Hmm.
I would just work until church started, go to church, and then I could end my Sunday, studying. But I just felt such an obligation to do something to show my family that I want to do something to support myself during this time.
Hmm.
And I told people all the time, you can do anything you put your mind to. That was a lot, but it really kept me so focused because I knew I was going to the store for 5 a.m. I had all my books, they'd be on the counter, and I would study in between selling my worms and meat, or
Doing it all.
doing it
Doing
all, just figuring
wow.
it out. But just kind of having that kind of drive. I really wanted my family to know that I'm working really hard to make this happen for me, and I appreciate all that you're investing in making this happen for me. So
Um, how did that stuff help you, kind of prepare for like a current day situation, the oratorical stuff, but also why be an attorney? I know that you said that you thought that you wanted to be one on your own. Your parents kind of made you be that, but you wanted to be one too. So, like, why? Like, why did you? What was the passion to be an attorney? What was that all about?
really being able to help people. My mom says this all the time. She's like, even when I was, 2, 3 years old, I was always trying to figure out ways to help, like in any situation. She's like, you just wanted to just hop in there and save the day and help and,
Oh.
really find a way to make sure that you had a presence in whatever was happening. And she said that's really what gave her and my dad. They knew I had the scholastic ability, and they were just thinking, you know what, she loves to help people. Let's figure. I think she'd be a good attorney. Um, and so with the oratorical, it came. They did that because I was shy. They knew I was really smart, but just putting myself out there and being able to present on a project and that sort of thing, I always wanted to be be the helper in the back. And they did that
Hmm.
to just push me to the front to,
Hmm.
present your project, go out and show these sheep, like all these things. And when I think about the thoughtfulness that they had in raising me, and making sure that I had these certain, we didn't have a lot of money, you know what I mean? But they just found ways to help me have these experiences that would enrich me. But that's one of the things, and I thank the Lord a lot for having parents that were just so thoughtful in how they raised me. Um,
Hmm.
and making sure that I had the background and the base to have a fulfilling life.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I got into those things. And we were so in church, it was such a easy way to push me out there because in church, at least back in the day, I don't think we do it as much now in our churches, but the children were always on a program or in a program or speaking at something at church or even Sunday school. At the end of Sunday school in my day, there had to be a presentation of the lesson. And at our church, it was always done by the children. And so all those things really helped me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So you definitely have a desire to serve and to help people.
Yeah.
When you did, get out of law school, we're at a place where, you have to kind of go out and actually utilize all the knowledge and the skills that you've acquired during that time. Talk to us about that time when you actually did graduate law school and you're at it. I mean, you're able to kind of go in the direction that you want to go. Which direction did you go? What was the path? What was the plan of action that you had for yourself?
A funny story. When I was in law school, well, going into law school, I'm thinking I'm going to be a criminal lawyer, is what I.
Hmm. Okay.
And so after my work at the store, first year of law school, second year of law school, we have on-campus interviews, and I received a job at a criminal law firm. And so I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This is the work that I want to do. And I'll never, it's so weird because this is 20 years since Hurricane Katrina. My first day of work was that Monday of Katrina.
Oh, wow.
And I went to work and the wind is blowing, it's rain, and I show up for work and they're like, sweetheart, why are you here? Like, it's like, this is my first day. I was supposed to
Yeah.
report. I am here. And they were like, thank you for your dedication. We will see you whenever we figure out what's happening with this storm. And it was always, I think I started like the following week because, power, it was just such a weird
It
time.
was it was a lot going on.
And I always go back to that. And even now, and it's so strange because those attorneys at that criminal law firm have appeared before me in my court in Canton. So I went from being their student worker, and now I'm the judge when some of them come to court. But anyway,
Hmm.
so I'm thinking criminal law. That's what I'm going to do. I finally get to work after Katrina, and I didn't like going to jail, like physically going to the jail
Hmm.
to see clients. And it really wasn't my clients that part of it didn't bother me going to the jail. It was all the other things that went into that. And I started thinking, you know what, I don't really I don't want to do this every day. Um and then I really enjoyed my property law class. Um and that's when I kind of developed the love for real estate law, my second year property law class. And that's when I decided, I think I'll go into or have some focus on real estate. My grandfather had been a real estate investor most of my life. He would buy, sell, flip houses here and there. And so I kind of always been around, the real estate world with him, but really understanding the terminology and how real estate is so important to everything that we do. I'm thinking, this is what I'm going to do. Now, the problem came is that I graduated in 2007 from law school. 2008, the housing bubble burst.
Yeah, it did.
And so, even looking for jobs out of law school and wanting to practice in the area of property law, I couldn't really find anything that would allow me to practice in that area. And so, I applied for a position with the Madison County Chancery Clerk. Who at that time was Arthur Johnston. And the Chancery Clerk's office is the office where they house all the real estate recordings. All the land records are kept with the Chancery Clerk. And so, I was talking to my parents and making a plan, and they said, you know what, this probably will be good. You can go in at the ground level of where all of this begins and ends in real estate, which is with the records. And so I worked there for 4 years. I learned how to search title during my time there, which is really important, having a background of understanding title and how to research it and create your own title abstract. And Arthur and I also wrote a treatise about Mississippi delinquent taxes. A lot of families lose their land in tax sales. Some don't have to if you understand the process, because even after it's sold, there's a 2 year redemption period. And even after it has matured, you could still get it back if the chancery clerk wasn't perfect in their noticing. Um, in my practice, I've had families come to me here recently. A family came to me, they lost 200 acres of land in a tax sale. Um, the tax sale buyer filed the suit to confirm it, served them with it. They didn't answer the lawsuit. And they were able to, the tax buyer was able to confirm title to this property, 200 acres. The taxes were $400. This is a family who is African American family. Their dad bought this property in the 70s, and he had kept it all this time up until this, recent tax sale. By the time they came to me, the judgment was a year old, and I said, "You got served with notice of the tax sale. You got served with a lawsuit. Why didn't you respond?" And the response was, "We were fighting with each other over who should pay the $400."
Oh, wow.
I didn't sleep for 2 nights off of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's,
Yeah, and so I've done a lot of work just on the education side of, helping folks understand how that really works. And that all came from my time there at the Chancery Clerk's office. Now, I will say I had law school friends, even some family members, like, what are you doing? This is not even a lawyer job, not a traditional lawyer job. Why are you spending your time here? And I just told them, I was like, this is going to be important later on in my career. I'm going to do this now, just so I can have a great understanding of how the records are kept, how to run title myself, and then learning about that tax sale process and being able to write that treatise with Arthur, who's now a great mentor of mine, has been so beneficial to my career long term. And so I will say to any young person, if folks are doubting what you're doing, if you have a plan and you know your why, stick to it.
mm-hmm.
Because I let that creep in. Now I got some job offers, during that 4 year period of time, and I took Arthur during that time 3 separate resignation letters. When I thought, I was like, oh, I'm going to go and do this, and I said, you're
Yeah.
not going to accept it. You need to stay here, and I
Mm-hmm.
listened to him, and so I've taken back, went back the second time, same thing. I'm going to go to this firm. They're doing, I can't remember. It was nothing real estate related, but I would be able to litigate. And so
Mm-hmm.
he was like, "You're going to be a great litigator, but you're going to be a real estate litigator." And he said no. And then the third offer came from a regional real estate investment firm that wanted me to represent them all over the state of Mississippi. And that's how I ended up licensed in Louisiana, because they also asked me to take the Louisiana bar. When I took him that letter, he said, "This is the one. Congratulations. Let me know when your last day will be." And that just made me, even now as a business owner, a better boss to my,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Just see,
Mm-hmm.
he could have let me go 2 resumes ago,
Right.
which would have been not beneficial for me in my career long term. But he cared enough to say, nope, now's not the time. And I'm glad that I had the humility to say, you know what, maybe I should rethink this and stay. He wants me to stay. He would always find some way to make my deal there with him sweeter so I could stay, feel
Mm-hmm.
valuable and valued there. And it just worked out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
for my benefit. And I think about that with my employees now and how I manage them and treat them that work here in our office.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's good to have a mentor like that. You know,
Yeah.
somebody that can really look out for your well-being and is actually like dedicated to it. It's something that's rare these days because a lot of times people will kind of let you kind of go out there and fail, but that's not the type of guidance that he had for you. So that's really great to hear. I'm sure you are able to encapsulate a lot of those traits into your current business now.
Yeah.
Um, I would love to just kind of hear what you're currently doing now and then transition to, you in this campaign running for Senate. I mean, it's so many wonderful things that you're doing. But just walk us through how that looks for you now.
Yeah, so I went worked for the real estate investment firm, stayed there 8 years. Like I said before, they wanted me to get licensed to practice in Louisiana. So they hired me November 2011. The bar was February of 12. So few months. I signed up for bar break, that same tenacity, started getting up at 4:30 to study because I was a full-time employee. So I studied from 4:30 to about 7:30, work from 8 to 5, go back to studying. Louisiana bar is a very difficult bar exam. It's 3 days, or it was. I
Oh,
forget.
wow.
I'm not a baby lawyer anymore, so it's 3 days every other day. So you go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and so I drove down to New Orleans, and on a Sunday. Monday, I'm ready to roll. Took it, passed it the first time, and then I'm off practicing in 2 states. And this is 2012. Worked for them for 8 years up until my daughter was born. My son was born in 2013. My daughter born in 2017, and I stayed around a little while after that, but it was so um, difficult to practice in both states. Um, and they didn't want anybody else handling those cases. And so I kind of cut back a little bit and then told them, I think now is the time for me to go into partnership with my husband, set up my own firm. And they gave me some great flexibility. I mean, it was a sweet ending. All of my endings have been pretty sweet with employers. And then we formed our law firm, Mumford and Mumford, Gerald and I. He'd already been in private practice for himself for some years, and then we partnered up. So he's handling the personal injury, premises liability side of things, and then I come in with the real estate planning, and both of us do a little bit of domestic work here and there. And it really was a great and has been a great working relationship with us. We get the question all the time: How do you all stay married, be law partners, and do all these things together? And we just have been partners even before we were officially partners. Since we met each other,
Hmm.
as we're supporting each other in both being able to let the other do what they do best
Hmm.
without any interference. And so it just really has worked well for us. Um, Sometime after that is when I wanted to get into the closing business and be a title attorney and do closings. What I didn't realize is what a closed society that was. Just figuring out how to get an agency and that sort of thing was really difficult because, again, there were only a handful of attorneys practicing in that area and there was no playbook. And so what happened was I ended up becoming an approved attorney for a non-attorney agent, and Mississippi no longer allows those. But back in the day, you could be a non-attorney, take an exam, become a closing agent, which would make you a non-attorney agent. And so this particular agent had to have an approved attorney, and brought me on. Now I came in with a lot of experience, background, and title, but not a book of business. And so I spent that time going out, taking realtors to lunch and dinner and coffee and saying, give me a chance to be your closing attorney. And so now it's not hard for me to go out and ask for a vote because I had to do that to even get
Hmm.
business going, was to go out and say, because you don't have a title company if you don't have any realtors that will close it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so even that was just such a humbling experience because here I am, presenting myself to them. And most of these people, they already had their books of business. They had their closing office where they were comfortable going. And I had to really go in there and say, this is what I've done over my career. This is who I am. You can trust me with your business. And within a few months, I had a booming book of business, and that it carried from there to us starting Mumford Title in 2021, and we've been rolling ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So during that time, you're loving the work that you're doing. You know, you're partnering with Gerald, great brother, might I say. You all are partnering quite well and developing some really great partnerships just in work. Um, Now he's in politics. Was there ever a time when you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna do that too," or
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about making that transition?
Gerald and I were dating as law students. He told me that he was going to run for office.
Hmm.
He told me that his first office was going to be county prosecutor, which is the position that he's in now. And so he had a very good idea of what he was doing and where he was going politically. My response to him was, I will support you. I'm so happy that you will be offering yourself for service, but I will never, ever, ever put my name on the ballot. Never say, because I said that to him, probably 20 years ago when we were dating. And fast forward to today, I was one of those people who would, see seats come open and see the list of candidates and say, we didn't have anybody better than that to run. Like, we're not giving our community any good options. Or I would
Hmm.
see certain things happen and wonder why no one would stand up. And I've always been one to fight for the little guy, right? And so what I would think is, we need someone that's advocating for everyone. And so when it became apparent that John Horn was going to be Jackson's next mayor, something just kept eating at me and speaking to me that I needed to just get off the sideline. Um, and when I think about my life and how things have just happened at a certain time to prepare me for this thing and then the next thing and the next thing, I see it. I can see why I had all of those experiences over these last 20 plus years in my legal career, but even going back to my days just as a young student growing up in a small town that prepared me for this moment. And I wasn't someone that came from a family that had influence or was politically connected or anything like that, but I was taught service and purpose. And really, like I said earlier, using your gifts. And so that's kind of how I went from that moment of saying I would never do this to now being all in, fully committed, and campaigning to be the next state senator for District 26.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you have really acquired a lot of skills that really make you, in my mind, very adequately prepared to take on this challenge. Um, how long did it take for you to kind of, wrestle with the idea of doing it versus not doing it? Like, was that like a long, drawn out process that made you kind of make for sure that you wanted to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it was several weeks of praying because I wanted a different answer. I wanted it just not to be honest. So, it was really like, is this really it? Like, is this what you're
Mhm.
saying I need to do? And so I really did spend some time praying. And then I started talking to people in our community, those stakeholders. I mean, one of the first people I talked to was my pastor. I called him up and he was ecstatic, just absolutely. Before I can get the words out, it's like, I know he's connected to the source too. So,
Mhm.
it's almost like before I could get all of my words out, he was saying, absolutely, what do I need to do to help you do this? And so having that kind of support from others who I admire, who have been working in our community and have a good understanding of what it takes to be effective, that kind of gave me that second layer of the time is right, this is the
Mhm.
right thing to do. I was just so skeptical of politics because of the time and the expense and all the other things that come into it. But what has been so refreshing for me has been the people. And so when I think about being that little girl that always wanted to help people And now having all these people receive me with such warmth and love and almost and hope, it really gives me the drive to go out and do a good job. And I've been saying this, I'm a real estate lawyer, so I'm always focusing on what the result is,
Mm-hmm.
and how I better serve you, how I can come back to you this time next year and say, hey, Dr. Green, I've gone through my first legislative session. These are the things that I accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going there with that in mind. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
can I help make your life better? The other thing that I've noticed in this process is that, and this is a huge district, we've got Bolton, Edwards, parts of Clinton, Pocahontas, Brownsville, South Ridgeland, North Jackson, North Madison. I'm talking to all of these different people, and they are having the same quality of life concerns: good roads and bridges,
Mm-hmm.
concern about their retirement for our public employees, better schools and opportunities for our students, even our college students who are leaving in droves to go to Georgia and Texas. How do we keep them home? And that's something that's so important to me because I never thought of going anywhere else. Like, and I had friends who I went to college with who were already planning their move to the big city. That was never
Mm-hmm.
a part of my plan.
Yeah.
you know, I knew, Jackson was as far as I was likely to go from Canton. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to be accessible for the community that made me, you know?
I do.
And so that's kind of how I was thinking. But what hope do I give the next generation that they can do the same thing and still have a good life here?
Mm-hmm.
Driving some economic development and good paying jobs. So they are encouraged to stay here. It's protecting our public retirement system. So if they decide to be teachers, they can look forward to a good, healthy retirement, or nurses or police officers. All those things are so important. And we are at such a critical time because all those things are being attacked. And so that's why I'm in the race,
Mm-hmm.
because I understand what it's like to be in that position.
Absolutely. And I mean, politics is always a really interesting space to be in because there are so many opposing forces to, trying to stop, the progress and the productivity. Sometimes it's, specific, sometimes it may not be, sometimes it kind of is. But for one thing, with politics, you always have the ability to make change and to, see that things are done differently than they've been done in the past. And in your, pursuit of, being a Senate, being a senator, what would just so individuals will know, what would be some of the primary tasks that you would be given in this role as in Senate 26?
Well, I'm basically making sure I take care of the needs of my district, which is 26. So all of those different areas. Senate District 26 is such a unique district just because we've got urban and rural,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so I spend so much time talking to everyone, but like I said before, most people have those same general concerns. You know what I mean? Public safety. They want to feel safe in their neighborhoods. We all do. Well, how do I help accomplish that as your state senator? Well, I can make sure that our police officers have some decent pay. I've been a judge for 12 years. I see the number of my officers that have to work overtime just to make a good wage. We should change that because they're laying their lives on the line to protect us. The other thing about public safety, though, is that it just shouldn't start with responding to a crime. That's another thing that I see on the bench every week. We should be in a position where we are working on workforce development so that our students can have some other options of things to do other than getting in trouble. And I'll give an example. In my court, I have young people all the time with these traffic offenses, some of them starting with not having a driver's license. And so they come into court, they have 5 or 6 tickets. What do you do every day? Nothing. Who do you live with? Mom or grandma? So who takes care of you? I figure it out. Who's going to pay these tickets? Grandma. Next question: what do you like to do? And I will spend some time figuring out what they like to do based on what their answers are. And I'll say, okay, I'll try to help you. This is your first time here. you like to cut hair. Let me see you go get in barber school. Or you say you like to work with your hands. Have you tried to go to a welding program? I have seen such good results from offering that alternative for some folks that just need some direction and someone to give them some exposure. So most times these are kids that were not on the college prep track anyway. And so they end up just kind of thinking they have time to figure it out. And we're
Hmm.
19, 20, 21 years old. And I'm saying, look, these are the best years of your life. This is time for you to figure out what you like to do, what you don't like to do, but make sure you're working towards that goal. I don't expect for you to know who or what you want to be at 5 years old. That was a little odd. I recognize that. But let's be working towards figuring out who you want to be and what you want to do. And so I've had some success with that. Now, I will say I'm tough on the bench. Now, you're not going to come in and out hurting people, doing bad things to people, and I'm giving you some alternative sentencing. That
Hmm.
does not happen in my court.
Hmm.
But when I see that there's someone that needs some direction, especially when there's traffic offenses and things like that, I try to figure out ways to help the person. So,
Hmm.
what if in our public safety concerns, it was more than just the policing and the responding to crime, but making sure that working parents have proper after school programs so their children don't end up getting with the wrong crowd? Or workforce development for that student that doesn't know exactly who they want to be or what they want to do, or establishing a mental health court, because this is something that I get a front row seat to every week in court. There is someone who's been charged with a crime that has a serious mental health issue, but there's no one to tend to it. They don't have family that has the means or even the wherewithal to go and have them committed. And so they end up in jail when some medication therapy training could help them have a better, more fulfilling life. And so those are the things that I'm hearing throughout the district. Those are some of the things that I'll focus on as a senator.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I think all of it is very important. You touched briefly on the mental health aspect of it, and I couldn't be more of an advocate for that because a lot of the things that we do see tend to be kind of funneled in that space. So I
Mhm.
think having that approach is so important. Just knowing the importance of having mental health and having access to, helping people with mental health
Yeah.
issues or concerns.
We have a program, MRT is more recognition training, where people are just they come in and they talk about good decision making. Something as simple as that, where in some instances folks just don't have the exposure to really understand how making this one decision will lead to something else that can be detrimental to you. And there has been so much success with having some of our young people go through that program, with them just being able to recognize how to avoid conflict and to stay out of trouble and that sort of thing. Which I think we
Mhm.
should probably have those in the schools too. That will be another part of my platform, is just offering that, because they shouldn't have to come see me in court.
Mhm.
At that point, they've already done something. Why not offer it to some of our students who may not have parents who've had that exposure to be able to help them? I feel like I was raised by a community and I have outstanding parents. But when I think about my neighbor across the street, Mr. Otis Davis, Pastor Otis Davis now, and his wife Pam, who were big Alcornites, who were taking me to Alcorn with them on the weekend. They were a working family. Mom and dad worked. Same thing for my family. And so Otis took us to school every day. They had two girls. My parents had two girls at the time. My brother came later. And then my dad would come pick us up from school. They were helping each other, with the children. They did the same thing for activities. They put us in similar activities so one could drop off, one could pick up. It was such a beautiful thing. And I don't see that as much in our community anymore. And I think that's something we need to go back to.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, when you think of the conversations that you've had with so many people across, the metro area and everywhere beyond in this particular area, um, what do you think are the important things to kind of focus on, when you are able, or if you are elected into this position, what are some of the things that you think are important to focus on, maybe in your first few months?
Going in the next session, I know some of the things that are already on the agenda, which is PERS, education, um, and then making sure for me that I am there to make sure we have the proper appropriations for our roads and bridges. I live in a rural area. There's been a bridge out for several months already. We need to make sure we have proper funding because that causes a delay. Even near one of my voting precincts, the voters are going to have to go 10, 15 minutes, probably like 7 or 8 miles out of the way because the bridge is out. Is that going to affect people from even voting? Because it's already affecting them on their day to day lives. And so making sure that we have proper appropriations for that is really going to be important to me. Look, I'm the quality of life candidate. So I want to make sure our neighborhoods are safe, our children are properly educated, that our community has the resources that it needs so that we can get out of survival mode and thrive.
Hmm.
And that's what I want to see for every family.
Hmm.
And I know that it can happen because I go back to my very own upbringing. We did not have any means, whatsoever, but it was such an enriching upbringing because of how everyone worked together, and how the community supported the children, and that sort of thing. And I think if we can encourage that more, then we go from survival to thriving. Now I know
Hmm.
things are a lot different with there being a supermajority in the legislature. I know there will have to be some working with others, which I'm good at. Based on my background from coming from Canton High School to Mississippi State University to Mississippi College School of Law to being a real estate attorney, which is a white male dominated world, I know how to work with others to get results because I'm going to the Capitol with one goal in mind, and that is to improve the lives of those that live in Senate District 26, which I
That's
think will have some residual effects for everyone that lives in our state.
hmm
Yeah.
it's a huge area. It's a huge area, and you have such an opportunity to make such a lasting impact
Oh, yeah.
on so many people. So it's very important that people first off go out and vote, but also, know why they need to go and vote because there's so much more at stake at the
Mhm.
local level, as opposed to the national level. We sometimes kind of get that kind of confused, but it starts here. And I'm so glad that you are sharing, the conversations and the types of goals that you want to see done in this role if you're voted into it. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh,
I
you're
have
welcome.
one more question for you.
Okay.
What is one word that personifies who you are?
One word, dedicated. Anything that I'm putting my mind to, and I get this question often on the campaign trail is how are you able to do all these things that you're doing right now? And it really is that I'm dedicated. Um, to not just enriching my personal life, but really dedicated to community, and dedicated to making sure that everyone has the opportunity to have just a good, solid, stable life. And I know that comes with some leadership. Sure, we talk about accountability amongst people and how folks should be accountable for their own actions. I do a good deal of preaching on Wednesdays when I'm on the bench. But I think if we think about the systems that are in place and how we can use them to make lives better, then we can have more conversations about personal accountability if we're helping to equip our citizens with the tools that they need to be successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think your track record of dedication speaks to the word that you chose for yourself. I just want to throw that out there. When you said it, I was like, oh yeah, that's it. That's the
Yeah.
word that I would use to describe her as well. Kamesha Mumford, thank you so very much for joining today. I know that a lot of people were able to glean a lot of knowledge from you and hopefully are able to, hear your story and equate it to the role in which you are soliciting for us to vote for. So I hope that it goes well for you. And I again thank you for taking out some time. You have a really extremely busy schedule, so thank you for carving out some time.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
No, no problem at all. So, in the event that people want to learn more about you, learn more about your campaign, how can people reach out to you?
Well, we have a website. It's K Mumford, www.kmumford4senate.com. Our law office is at 820 North Street in Jackson. We're right off Fortification. You would be amazed at how many clients just stop by to see us without appointments. Makes me feel really good that they trust us that much. But you can reach us by phone, 601-398-2347. That's the number for our law practice, the title company, and for our campaign. And so you can reach us there, 601-398-2347.
All right. And you mentioned something that you're grateful for, but I want to just ask again that, is there something that you're just grateful for today again, or?
You know, over these last several months, the one thing that I have found that I'm most grateful for is the opportunity to serve, the opportunity to be able to offer myself in this way. And I think about, I talked about my parents and how amazing and wonderful they are, but they positioned me to be ready to serve in this manner. And I really am thankful. I told someone earlier today, I said, when my head hits the pillow every night, I am fast asleep because I'm exhausted. But I'm so proud of the work that we're already doing and just getting the message out to others. And so humble by the support from others, folks who have just met me for the first time, who are encouraging me. Someone said the other day, said, every time I see your sign, I say, you got this. And I met her for the first time in person, like yesterday. But hearing that and feeling that support and love makes me grateful for this opportunity at this appointed time.
Absolutely. I just feel privileged just to hear your story and to be able to parallel it to this position that you're going after. I mean, I think you definitely have made a way for yourself to really be right on target with this position. And I think that the more that people see you, because I see you as well, like I share with you, I see you everywhere. I think people are connecting the dots to seeing just how qualified you are for this. And so you definitely have my vote. And I really hope that other people see the same qualities in you that I've seen today and just even before then. So thank you again for doing this. Um, I'm grateful for this opportunity. That's my grateful moment. I'm grateful that you shared this time with us. So I appreciate you again for it. And for everybody else that's watching, you can watch this episode and many other episodes on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And you can also go to my webpage, drsgreen.com, to learn more. But come back again. We're going to have another amazing guest. And I hope that you have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week.